Greetings and welcome to the Dr. J Vlog series. It is Saturday, June 7th, 2025. And on Saturdays, we talk about sports and sprinkle in a bit of humor too. And actually, this is a momentous day because 45 years ago today, it was also a Saturday. And that's when I remember graduating from high school. And yes, I actually was the last speaker at our graduation ceremony. So, I should show you a picture of what it looked like back then. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about or give you another update on the quest, maybe a quixotic quest to dribble a basketball across Canada. No, it's never been done before, as best I can determine. And yes, the plan is to dribble across Canada, either in 2026 or 2027, depending upon my training schedule and my teaching schedule for that matter as well. So today I'm offering my second update and my first experience of being hit by a car as well while dribbling. And that's at the end of the vlog today. So yeah, in terms of the Dribble Across Canada quest, so the idea will be to start in Victoria, British Columbia, and that's the west coast of Canada, and I'll be dribbling a basketball, roughly the equivalence of about a full marathon each day. So again, for those who are keeping score, that's about 42.2 kilometers or about 26.2 miles. And yeah, I'll be starting on the west coast, and then I'll be charting a course across all of the provinces, including visits through every capital of every province, with the exception of Edmonton, Alberta. That's going to take me too far north. And I've been to Edmonton. I love Edmonton, but I just don't have the time to be able to go there as well. So I'm going to be passing through Calgary instead. I'm going to have to pretend Calgary's the capital of Alberta. A lot of the Calgarians think they are already, but that's another story. And I don't want to stir up any controversy in Alberta. Okay, so and then eventually the plan is to end the journey at St. John's, Newfoundland. And that's on the Atlantic Ocean, of course. And that's about, by the way, a total of 7,300, about 7,300 kilometers by car, by roadway, which means that I'm looking at a minimum of about 6 months. And if I can do 50 kilometers per day, and I'm not saying that I'm going to, or again, the plan is to, set the course for a marathon a day. But if I were able to do 50 kilometers a day, that ended up being comfortable enough, then in principle, I could do the whole journey in about 5 months. But again, you have to worry about injuries and the unexpected conditions and so forth. A lot of things can arise. So no guarantees in this regard. And yeah, you have to choose the timing carefully for this sort of thing as well, along with the route and the consideration of the weather conditions, etc. And of course, that means I'll be starting in April and taking advantage of the warmest months, etc. So crazy, I know, the whole idea. But remember, it's for a good cause. And the idea is to raise funds and secure sponsorships to start a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families cope who are afflicted with one or more individuals who are suffering from a substance use disorder, or what we commonly refer to as a drug addiction. So that's right. There are plenty of resources out there for people who are suffering substance use disorders of various kinds. But they're not always the adequate supports, or sometimes any supports, for their family members. And working with experts in the field, we'll be developing programs and resources and educational and support groups for the families who are often struggling to figure out how best to interact with and be supportive of those who are suffering from whatever their various addictions might be, and then the many problems that arise with that. So the thing is, who among us is really trained to respond effectively when someone in your own family ends up having a substance use disorder? It's not something most of us are prepared to deal with or have been trained to deal with, myself included. And so, I know if it happened to me, I need a lot of help and education and probably personal counseling. For example, if one of our 5 boys were suffering from, a drug addiction of some kind. Thankfully, we've been spared that in our family. in our immediate family. But remember, it's estimated that in both Canada and the United States, again, these are the two countries that have amongst the highest addiction rates in the world, with at least 1 in 5 families likely to be directly affected by someone with a substance use disorder. And again, so many of those family members need support and resources and knowledge or education in order to be able to cope effectively. So that's what we're hoping to do. And again, I say we because we're building a team of experts to create the as yet unnamed nonprofit organization. And we're going to be developing state-of-the-art interventions based on the best scientific and practice knowledge available. Again, targeting the families, supporting the families. And so I'll share much more of the information as this develops down the road. For now, though, what I wanted to also do today is share with you an update on the training. So, and I'll do this in different ways periodically as we go through this process, but I have 6 points I want to make today, and they're fairly brief, each of them, so don't worry. First, I've noticed that I never see anybody else running around London, Ontario, or anywhere for that matter, while dribbling a basketball. So, in fact, I don't really recall seeing anybody outside of a basketball court regularly dribbling a basketball. I'm sure people must do it. But I've noticed that I get a lot of unusual looks and a few comments already when people see me dribbling around. Second, while I have no problem dribbling a basketball, because I've been doing this, really since a very young age, there are definitely some different biomechanics involved from just pure running, per se. So I've trained for and I've run marathons and half marathons in the past, but it's actually pretty easy to do that once you've built up the leg strength and your cardio and so on. The basketball dribbling adds an interesting dimension because you're using your arms to dribble while you're running, obviously. And depending upon your dribbling technique, it's absolutely essential to keep what's known in the business. If you coach basketball, you play basketball, you need to have a very tight dribble. And that is, you want to have everything as straight and as streamlined as possible. Okay? And you want to be keeping your momentum always going forward, not sideways, obviously. Okay? And so if you extend your arms too far while you're dribbling, okay, you're especially far away from your body on either side, then you're going to be creating torque on your body, and you're going to be creating these cross forces that slow you down. And more important, they sap you of your energy. So yeah, it takes a lot more energy, especially depending on your form as you're dribbling, rather than just running without a basketball, obviously. And so there's also a lot of core and shoulder strength involved as well in maintaining your proper running form, but also while maintaining a proper dribbling form. So this is something to bear in mind too. By the way, I only have one piece of basketball paraphernalia of any kind, really. And this is a signed basketball by Clyde Drexler. I don't know if you can see that properly. So yeah, Hall of Famer Clyde the Glide Drexler. So this is the only thing I have from any celebrity. I don't have any autographs. I don't have anything of any kind. But I do have a signed basketball from Clyde Drexler. So I hope that I can glide across the continent the way Clyde the Glide used to across the basketball court. Okay, anyway, that's just a little aside. So third, and this is something that I certainly expected, you have to deal with a lot of uneven terrain as you're dribbling on these long runs, okay? So basketball courts are obviously flat and smooth and easy, but sidewalks and bike paths and roadways and the occasional grassy patch you have to traverse as well, these are quite a different challenge, shall we say, okay? So yes, you have to stay even more focused when you're dribbling than just being out for a jog, or even if you're doing more intense training, as a competitive runner. So again, I've mentioned I'm a strong dribbler with both hands, simply because I've been dribbling a basketball for over 50 years. So it's not meant to be a brag at all. If you do something for at least 50 years, hopefully you'll get pretty good at it, whatever that might be. But I still have to focus and concentrate more with these long training sessions while dribbling. And so the mental aspect obviously plays a crucial role in many different ways. And here I just mean to highlight the importance of not losing control of your dribble and sending that ball out into the middle of the road, especially, which I've only done once so far, as I mentioned in last Saturday's vlog. So I've been pretty good about that. All right. Fourth, it's also more about leg strength and core strength than cardio. So I did a 90-minute training session the day before yesterday, which is becoming increasingly easy in the sense of being able to complete the runs and not feeling tired, or at least from a cardiovascular standpoint. And that is within 5 minutes of completing that run. In fact, my heart rate was already down to about 70 beats per minute. So just a little bit above my resting heart rate, which is usually around 60, or actually these days now, because I've been training more, in the mid to upper 50s. So now the only real problem I had is that I feel the legs getting tired and stiffen up after 75 to 90 minutes roughly at this point. So why does that matter? Well, the aim is to do a marathon a day, and that'll take about 5 hours on average based on the general pace that I'm planning. Okay, so for example, I did a 2.5 hour training session last Sunday, and I covered almost a half a marathon. I was just guessing, but then I tried to measure it, and it was almost a half marathon. But my cardio was fine, because that's a fairly slow pace, at least, for somebody like me, since I used to run, and I could run a half marathon, say, in about an hour and 20 minutes. In fact, I think my best time PB something like an hour, 19 minutes, and 30 seconds, something like that. So, and that's considerably faster, obviously, than what I'm talking about here. But the problem is that my legs start to tighten up, especially after 90 minutes. And so, like any training that involves endurance and building up muscle strength, it takes time. And so I can do an hour now and barely feel it. So that's the good news. So I'm looking forward to, hopefully, with these regular workouts, the minimum workouts that I'm doing these days are at least an hour a day. So the idea is to reach that next level where I can go for upwards of 2 hours and hopefully not feel too much tightness. Again, the cardio is okay. It's already there. But the idea is to feel, keep the legs strong and not feel them tighten up on me and so forth. Okay, and the aim is to do this Sunday, tomorrow then, my first 3-hour training session, a dribble run. I'll be dribbling the whole time, of course, and then mostly running, and then interspersed with walking as well. That's fine. And this will be the first time I've gone 3 hours in a workout, literally since 1998. That's the last year that I did competitive running. And so, again, the cardio, I'm not worried about at all. My legs, however, might tell me to F off. We'll see what happens. I hope they'll be a little bit more polite. Fifth, I want to say it's incredibly fun to actually be training again, in the sense that I forgot what it's like to be committed to some type of physical training. In fact, I've been a university professor all my adult life, and while I write books and articles and that sort of thing, I teach for a living. I think I was born about 300 years too late. So in other words, if I'd been born in, say, 1662, I think that's where historically I would have fit in best. Now, why? Well, because I'd have to get up early, typically, right? And get down to the river, or maybe start a fire, prepare some foodstuffs, depending upon, what my wife was up to and whatever the division of labor would be. And then I'd be focusing my energies on, securing the homestead or doing repairs, or maybe coordinating with others in the community on certain larger projects, or whatever. And then maybe I do some reading and writing in the evening by candlelight. I don't know. Who knows? But my point is that I like being kind of a physical human being again. I naturally enjoy waking up early and having chores to do, manual labor, stuff that I know has to be done. That might sound strange to many of you, most of you, but it's why I've also never complained about, for example, having to get up early, maybe an hour or whatever, to shovel snow during our long Canadian winters. You just adapt to your environment. And again, when it snows, I don't think, oh my gosh, it snowed. Oh my, what am I going to do? The first thing I think of is, oh, set the alarm earlier, or I don't even really need an alarm. I'll just wake up, get out there at 4:30 or 5 or whatever time I wake up and go shovel snow. There's something, I don't know, uniquely satisfying about that. And anyway, you just have to, as I say, adapt to the environment. And I think that's what this whole ordeal basically involves as well, right? Adapting to the training, to the demands, to the daily grind, if you will, and then keeping one's eye on that sort of long-term objective. In this case, well, historically it would have been survival, but I would say even survival about, how can you push yourself and do what I'm planning, marathon a day, etc., and then survive that. And not just survive, but be able to, to thrive, if you will, under some rather challenging circumstances. So we'll see. And then speaking of survival, and this is the final point I want to make today, when, people who are, drivers in general don't always pay attention to runners, even if they're dribbling a basketball, making a lot of noise like I am. So, yes, I was actually, I guess it'd be yesterday now since this is on Saturday. So on Friday, I was actually hit by my first car. Okay. Obviously, it wasn't that big a deal because I'm chatting with you and you don't see my face all destroyed or whatever. And in fact, I actually almost saw it coming. So when drivers are coming out of shopping plazas or whatever, they always look to the left to see if there's traffic coming. That's the normal, pattern. But many don't necessarily look to the right because the cars won't be coming from the right. But of course, pedestrians or cyclists or dopes like me dribbling a basketball might be coming from the right. So I was coming up from the right on the sidewalk, and I actually saw the one car there. It was sort of halfway, almost into the sidewalk, and I just, gave the old go ahead. So they turned right, as it turns out, and then I started to cross, figuring that the next person would wait. But that person wasn't paying any attention at all. So they probably didn't see me waving the driver ahead of them ahead. And I guess they were in a hurry too. So they started to pull out right away. And basically they clipped me on my, on my left hand. Well, I actually I stuck my left hand out and, and they clipped me. And it wasn't much of a hit. Okay. Obviously I sensed their embarrassment and vaguely, I think they may have said something, but I didn't really look back. And instead, I was pretty stoked for two reasons. First, as I mentioned, I buffered the blow, if you will, and by jumping slightly at the same time. Okay. And so there's minimal contact, minimal damage, as it were. And second, and even more importantly, I didn't lose my dribble. So yes, I kept the dribble alive and I kept the run going. So that's what I was most proud of. But I do consider myself lucky, right? I was actually hit once many years ago, back in the mid-1980s, when I was running alongside a 4-lane roadway in Virginia, and the speed limit was 35 or maybe 45 miles per hour. And I was running with the traffic, but I was on the shoulder of the road, right? But the person driving, or who's coming up behind me, again, how you take your eye off the road, or you're not always paying 100% attention. They just edged off of the main road slightly, and their side view mirror, I was running like this, of course, their side view mirror clipped my left elbow, okay? And it actually spun me around, okay? But it wasn't that bad either. I mean, it hurt my elbow a little bit, but it wasn't killing me. But if they'd been a few more inches to the right, it could have been much worse, or even, I guess, potentially fatal. So, two important lessons then. One, always be facing the traffic so you can see what's coming. And then 2, always assume that the drivers that are coming out of parking lots or plazas or whatever are not looking, especially to their right. So usually I try to make a habit of just going behind the cars rather than trusting that they'll be patiently waiting for me like a Canadian goose, or again, in my case, a gander crossing. That's probably not going to happen in every case. All right, so that's it for today. So wish me luck on my 3-hour run tomorrow, when my plan will be to hum the theme song from Gilligan's Island, a 3-hour tour, right? Let's hope I don't end up shipwrecked. So in the meantime, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs in abundance. Hopefully, I will see you tomorrow. Keep well.